Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're going to do It Came From the Network. And if you're not familiar with It Came From the Network, it's where we review the weird, wacky, sometimes bad, sometimes good, sometimes campy stuff you could find formerly on the WWE Network, now on Peacock. At least for us in the United States. With that being said, much like the last time, I decided I was going to do a random episode of Monday Nitro. So I put it into a randomizer, picked a random year, picked a random episode. I got Season 1, Episode 9, which is from October 30th of 1995. So, historically, this is one day after Halloween Havoc 1995, where the Giant, aka The Big Show, made his debut, beat Hulk Hogan for the World Championship. We'll talk about that in a little bit. First up, the first match of the night, Craig the Pitbull Pitman, Sergeant Craig Pitman versus Eddie Guerrero, very young Eddie Guerrero here. This was early in his WCW career. I want to say he just came over from ECW earlier that summer. And this was a really solid opener. Pitman, he was kind of more known as a guy from a Saturday Night's Main Event, or not Saturday Night's Main Event, the WCW Saturday Night Show. And he was more of a low-card guy, and I actually didn't remember him being as good as he was. It kind of feels like he was, watching it now, watching back, it feels like the gimmick hampered him. Because he had a gimmick that was maybe 10 years in the past, in the mid-90s, when everything was starting to go as you eventually seen. This is roughly a year before the NWO. ECW was just starting to bubble up. The Attitude Era wouldn't come along for at least another year and a half. So this is kind of in that still cartoony era, and I think Craig Pitman kind of got hampered because of that, because this was a lot better match than I was expecting. And I can't say that was all on Eddie Guerrero, because Craig Pitman did a really good job as well. Eddie picks up the win here with a roll-up. I'm going to give this 5. Oh, and by the way, if you haven't watched our shows before, we grade everything on a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. I give this one a 5. I thought it was a really good opener, a better match than what I was expecting, and probably my favorite match on the card. It was really good. Now, coming off of that, we had a very interesting match. The Shark, formerly Earthquake, versus Scott Flash Norton. This match I went into and I wanted to like more than I ended up liking it. Kind of the opposite effect of the previous match. This one underwhelmed for me. It didn't go very long. It ended up in a double countout. The match, they were more talking about Bobby Heenan, who was having a meeting with Sonny Ono, which would lead to Sonny Ono buying part of WCW, which was the storyline for Starrcade that year. But to me, it just kind of fell flat. It's not either one of the talents. I like Earthquake. I've said it several times. He's a guy that I think was highly underrated. Scott Norton, another guy that I think gets underrated, gets forgotten in time, but I thought they were really good. The match itself, it didn't go long. It was a double countout. I'm not against the double countout, but it really felt like there was nothing happening here. For that, I give this match a 2. Now, next up, and I said this on my last one, I don't normally review interviews or segments, but because this is a less than an hour-long show, at the time Monday Nitro was only for 1 hour, I made the exception here because 2 of the segments on the show, 2 of the longer segments, are interviews. First one, we have Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, and Brian Pillman come out. Basically, to lead up to this, the story behind it was the night before. Flair and Sting were wrestling Arn and Pillman. Flair turned on Sting for one of the 70,000 times he turned on Sting. Basically, this was the beginnings of them putting the Four Horsemen back together. They say it in the interview. They talk about 3 of the 4 being there. Just a masterful interview. You have 3 really good talkers. Ric Flair and Arn Anderson, both in the top 10 of talkers themselves. Brian Pillman just hitting his stride just before he would become the loose cannon character. I thought he was really awesome. Even in here, you're starting to see that turn where he was going from what he was to what he would be. And this was a really awesome promo, a really good segment. I give the segment itself a 5. Like I said, you got 2 of the legendary talkers of all time, another really good talker, 3/4 of the Four Horsemen here. Thought it was awesome. Next up, and again, this is a show that continued to surprise me. We have Disco Inferno versus Sabu. And I remember Sabu being in WCW. He had left WCW or ECW for WCW for a little while. And during this time frame, he only left for maybe 2-3 months. And I don't think he had more than 10 matches in WCW total. But we happened to catch one here. And this was an okay match. It was pretty good. A little bit on the short side, Disco Inferno. He was solid, but not anywhere on the level that Sabu was. You could tell there was some constraints on Sabu. Even with that, he did do some of the signature Sabu stuff. He at one point at the end, after Sabu picked up the win, he puts Disco on a table, tries to somersault through the table, and the table doesn't break. Or Disco moves, the table doesn't break, so he throws the table around, throws some chairs around. Classic Sabu stuff. Sabu picked up the win. I'm going to give this a 3. I thought it was solid. I thought it was a good showing for Sabu. Pleasantly surprised that he was on here. Kind of wish we could have. I do and I don't wish this, but I wish we could have seen Sabu in his prime more in a more prominent role. Yes, I know it would have took away from what he did in ECW, but I feel like a lot of people don't put the respect on Sabu's name that he really deserves. Now, coming from that, we have our main event of the evening. Lex Luger and Ming being brought to the ring by Kevin Sullivan and Jimmy the Mouth of the South Hart versus the American male Scotty Riggs and Marcus Alexander Bagwell. This was during the time the American males were basically a Chippendales gimmick. Luger and Ming were in the Dungeon of Doom. This whole card falls directly in the Dungeon of Doom era of WCW, so I was a little bit scared with that. It didn't come off as hokey as I thought it was going to with what I seen on here. This was a really solid match for, solid competitors. I thought it was okay. I would have switched around. I don't know that this is necessarily. I believe at the time they were still considering the Saturday night show their main show. So I didn't expect this to be the main event, and there was another segment that went on after that. But to me, it didn't feel like a main event for a Monday Nitro. Overall, the Luger and Ming pick up the win. I'm going to give this a 3. Again, like I said, it just didn't feel. It was a good match. It just didn't feel like it was a Monday Nitro main event. And coming from that, the whole night they teased they were going to show replays of Halloween Havoc. If you know anything about that Halloween Havoc, that's the infamous Yeti appearance. Yeti comes out and they do the double bear hug on Hulk Hogan. Jimmy Hart turns on Hulk Hogan to join the Giant. So in his contract, they put in there that the Giant gets a win by disqualification. He wins the title. It was goofy to watch the recap. The recap led to an in-ring interview, and again, I'm going to review this again because if I didn't, there'd only be like 3 things to review here if I just did the matches. We got an interview with the Giant, Lex Luger, Jimmy Hart, and Kevin Sullivan. This was kind of all over the place. I don't know if it was the subject matter or the fact that it was Dungeon of Doom era. Luger was off in the promo. He wasn't good at all. Jimmy Hart was good. Kevin Sullivan kind of seemed like to be going all over the place. I don't know if he had any talking points. The Giant didn't have much to do in the promo. What he did say was okay. I mean, I can't really hate on the guy. Overall, it was good to move storyline forward, but the promo itself, I'm going to give it 2. And basically, that was the entire show. A nice short show. Actually very enjoyable for me. I really enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I was going to, based off of the era that it came from, based off of what I seen on the card. I didn't expect the Pitman and Eddie Guerrero match to be as good. I did expect the Shark and Scott Norton to be better. I didn't expect to see Sabu on the card at all, and I expected a little better main event, but overall, what we had was solid. It was a really solid show. I would actually recommend going back and watching this. This was a good show, good quality show. Overall, I'm going to give the show a 4. I thought it was really good, really solid. Probably one of the better Nitros they had of this era. Now, with all that being said, I'm going to ask you, like all the other YouTubers do, if you could, please like, share, subscribe if you haven't before. Leave a comment down in the comments. And if you've watched this far, I know you're a fan. If you watched this all the way to the end, you just didn't click on this and click off. Let me know you watched all the way to the end. Put Sabu down here in the comments. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been another episode of It Came From the Network.